All right, let's dive right into this. We all have that ultimate financial fantasy, don't we? You buy a little paper ticket, the numbers somehow magically match up, and boom, you are instantly rich. All your money problems solved forever. You can literally quit your job tomorrow, buy a private island, and just live happily ever after. But today, we're going to look at the hard data, the psychology, and the genuinely surprising reality that proves this fantasy is actually just a massive myth.
It sounds absolutely crazy, right? I mean, what if winning the lottery actually ruined your life? Well, the counterintuitive reality is that most lottery winners end up in similar or sometimes even way worse financial positions within just a few years of winning. Instead of being this permanent magical fix, a massive financial windfall often destroys lives. It ruins long-term relationships, it totally wrecks mental health, and the money, it just vanishes. To put that into perspective, let's look at the sheer volume of failure we're talking about here. There's this famous study from the Review of Economics and Statistics, and they looked at 35,000 lottery winners. Get this, within just 5 short years, 1,900 of them had completely filed for bankruptcy. Think about that. They won the actual lottery, and 5 years later, they were legally broke. So how on earth does that happen? To understand why, let's look at Section 1, Sudden Money Syndrome. Psychologists actually have a name for this condition. It's called sudden wealth syndrome, and it is very, very real. It's basically the severe emotional and psychological distress people face when they acquire a huge amount of wealth completely out of the blue. You probably think winning the lottery just triggers a giant, fun shopping spree, but in reality, intense, unexpected money triggers a massive identity crisis. The psychological toll on these winners, or even people who get a sudden, massive inheritance, is honestly incredibly intense. They're almost immediately hit with profound anxiety. They face this crippling guilt about having so much when the people around them don't, and they suffer a sudden, jarring loss of purpose. Suddenly, they no longer know who they are, they don't know who their real friends are anymore, and they have no idea what they're supposed to do with their days. The symptoms are super heavy. Winners face this intense, overwhelming paranoia that they're either going to lose the fortune or be completely scammed. They experience extreme isolation because, well, their old friends simply can't afford to keep up with their new lifestyle. They feel guilt, they feel paralyzing shock and uncertainty. A lot of them actually resort to total secrecy and self-isolation just to protect themselves. And this heavy emotional burden literally paralyzes them from making smart financial choices. Which naturally brings us to Section 2, No Financial Foundation. So here's the crucial psychological point. There's this behavioral bias called mental accounting. Look, when you bust your back for a paycheck every 2 weeks, you treat that money with a lot of respect, right? You budget it carefully. But when you win the lottery, your brain completely mislabels it as free money. And because it wasn't earned through sweat and tears, it is spent far more recklessly. You don't treat it like real wealth, you treat it like casino chips. And because of that, there is a massive gap between expectations and reality. The expectation is that you'll just buy big mansions, luxury cars, and take exotic trips forever. But the reality? Buying a 10-bedroom mansion means paying massive, ongoing property taxes. It means paying for a full-time staff and dealing with crushing maintenance costs. These hidden, mundane, everyday costs drain those seemingly bottomless bank accounts incredibly fast.
Let's break down exactly how the money disappears. Reckless lifestyle creep happens almost instantly. Then people throw their money into high-risk, completely unresearched investments because they feel like they need to act rich. They get heavily exploited by scammers. They make wildly unsustainable gifts to family and friends that totally drain that principal. And of course, they quit their jobs with absolutely no long-term plan to generate new income. Without an underlying financial foundation, these specific traps absolutely guarantee the money evaporates, no matter how big the jackpot was.
Let's move on to Section 3. Real wealth is a skill, not an event. If you look at the chaotic lives of lottery winners and contrast them with the disciplined habits of the millionaire next door, the research shows a very consistent pattern. To quote the data directly, the wealthy live well below their means during the accumulation phase. True wealth is definitely not an accident. It's a deliberate, highly cultivated skill. It takes real time.
When you compare real wealth builders to windfall recipients, the difference is night and day. Wealth builders rely on process, discipline, and steady habits. Lottery winners, they rely on luck, sudden events, and pure impulse. Think of managing money like a muscle. If you haven't built up that muscle over years of saving and investing small amounts, you're going to completely collapse when someone drops millions of dollars right onto your shoulders.
It really all comes down to this one core truth. The gap between your income and your spending is where wealth is actually built. It's entirely about the process, not the jackpot. If you're finding this valuable, please subscribe to Wealth Lab and share this explainer with your friends and family. It really helps us grow.
Okay, section 4. Let's talk about what this means for you.
We need to stop waiting for a lucky ticket and start building a solid foundation today. Here are the practical takeaways. Step 1, learn basic financial literacy and start budgeting. Just get the basics down. Step 2, build steady habits so that when you do get a raise, you don't immediately succumb to lifestyle creep. And step 3, practice what wealth psychologists call a decision-free zone. Whenever you get extra money, whether it's a bonus at work or a tax refund, force yourself to wait a specific amount of time before making any decisions. Just give yourself some breathing room.
Look, having the actual skills to manage your money is fundamentally more important than just crossing your fingers and wishing for a giant pile of cash. Process beats the jackpot every single time. Your habits are what protect the money you earn. Your financial knowledge is what prevents you from falling for disastrous investments and slimy scams. And your discipline naturally stops lifestyle creep from eating away all your hard-earned progress.
The bottom line is really this. A sudden influx of money doesn't magically change who you are. It literally just magnifies your existing money habits. If your habits are bad, $1 million is just going to help you go broke even faster. So stop waiting for a windfall that honestly may never come, and ask yourself this. If you won $1 million tomorrow, would your current financial habits protect you or completely destroy you? Start building your foundation today. Thank you for joining us today. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to Wealth Lab. We'll see you in the next one.